All right, what's up, guys? I'm back with another episode of the Virtual Millionaire Show. I have with me today an expert at a specific niche in real estate that I'm excited to dive into today. Rich, what is up, man? How you doing today?
What's up, man? Beautiful day. Feeling blessed, man. Thanks for having me out here.
Of course, brother. Excited to have you on, man. Really just inspired by your story. I think a lot of people, have seasons in life where they go through certain things and it's really just turns into a blessing in disguise. And so for people who don't know who you are, let's start right there first, and then we'll get into the fun stuff with, what we're going to talk about today, obviously, what you're an expert at. So yeah, tell people who, for those who might not know who you are, man, and how you even got into real estate investing.
All right, cool. So I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Now I wholesale nationwide virtually. We run PPC, we do some cold calling, we do some texting. I do quite a few of JV deals, and I specialize in the niche of novations. So basically we lock up properties under contract using typical kind of wholesale marketing and negotiation, but we position it with the buyer where they understand that we're going to be reselling it to third party. We have the option of using the MLS. Now, I started from pretty humble beginnings. I've been in sales for a long time. I sold Kirby vacuums for 9 years, believe it or not, door to door. So
a lot of respect for that.
That's where I got my PhD in sales, was cutting my teeth doing that. And I've done lots of other things in sales. I've sold biz ops over the phone before I did Kirby. I did long distance, telecommunications over the phone. I took basically all the jobs that would hire anybody. Like, those were the types of jobs that were available to me, right? And I learned a lot from each of them, right? So like those tough sales jobs, when you talk about a blessing in disguise, I think it's great because you can learn a lot about how they motivate like the people that work at those jobs, like, right? Especially the places that are making money and doing well. I learned a lot about dealing with people, general sales experience, and kind of, what it takes to be successful at sales. And a lot of those places, they pitch a lot of mindset stuff because, maybe the people, that's a piece of the puzzle that they're missing. And that's something I'm definitely very big on. But yeah, Kirby, I was a top Kirby salesman. I had my own office for a while. The guy I was working for was really good at what he did. He was like one of the top performing people in the country for years and years. And he had that place for like 20 years. He was making millions of dollars. So that was definitely another blessing in disguise, because we were selling a high ticket item. Relatively speaking, it was a $2,800 purchase for people that had no intention of buying it, didn't think they needed it. And it was 10 times more expensive than any similar product they'd ever heard of. So, and we had one shot to close the deal. So I learned a lot of really important principles and techniques on how to lower people's guard and make them comfortable, and stick through a presentation when there was resistance, and keep them on your side, and closing with action, and setting the urgency, and all these things that, yes, I sold Kirby vacuums for way too long. I'll be the first to admit that. Like, most people that were in the business as long as me, like, you know what I mean? Like, we're doing different things at some point. I got really, really good at the sales part and the training part, but it ended up being a blessing, because when I transferred those skills to real estate, basically I was taking those skills from a vehicle that had a very clear limit on it, and the ceiling for real estate where I could take those same skills, there's much, much better opportunity, and complete blessing that I found it. I actually found it from one of my buddies, told the story before, that I knew from elementary school. Saw him taking all these crazy vacations all around the world, hit him up. I thought he was a realtor. I was like, hey man, this realtor thing's working out. He's like, oh no, I actually don't, I'm not a retail realtor anymore. I wholesale. And that's how I found wholesale, and went down the rabbit hole looking at Sean Terry videos, I really resonated with his sales approach, and he had tons of content. And I was doing that while I was still doing Kirby's. Had a baby coming on the way, and I knew like this lifestyle wasn't something I wanted to continue indefinitely. And eventually got a job working for Sean Terry, reached out to him, pitched myself. Within a few months, I was running his sales team, and then we transitioned to a virtual model and did that for worked for him for 2 years before eventually going on and doing my own thing. Worked for a guy, Corey Geary, too, for about 8 months, and that's where I learned Novations. And I've been doing my own thing with Novations a little bit over like a year and a half now.
All right. Well, a lot to unpack there. And thank you for kind of deep diving that story, because I think it's really important for people to understand, like, how did you develop these skill sets? And so it sounded like the vacuum sales were a huge part of that journey. Were you a born like closer, naturally gifted in closing deals before the vacuum sales, or did that really help you transition into being good at talking to people? Because I love your approach. For anybody who's not following Rich, go follow Innovation King first and foremost, because on Instagram, obviously we'll let people know where they can find out more, but I love your approach. How long did it take to craft that style? Because you talk about a consulting type style. How long did it take you to get that really dialed in? Because 8 years of selling vacuums is impressive. Like that's impressive, man.
Well, at the time, it wasn't that impressive. Like when I go to a party, right, and told everyone I sold Kirby vacuums, people were like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so envious of you," right? But
sure.
For sure, it ended up being such a big blessing. And I'll be honest, like basically all the things I learned in Kirby, I just transferred directly. The whole approach is exactly the things I do that I did in Kirby, even down to a lot of my corny one-liners and cheesy jokes were all Kirby jokes. And they transferred over, like I'm the fastest in the West and better than the rest. They'll be in and out of your hair faster than your favorite shampoo. You know what I mean? Serious and not curious. Like all these little rhyming and one-liner things were all things I learned in there. And here's what transferred, and I think why. So when I was selling Kirby's, I was showing someone a product. There was a high anxiety level for my prospects, right? Because the way that we procured the leads was we either knocked door to door and offered them a free gift and had like a really quick pitch and kind of forced our way in. Honestly, like low key, that's what worked the best, was just assuming it and like literally like walking in their house. It sounds crazy. It's a whole nother podcast though. Like that's the way to like get in the houses, is to assume. And I learned a lot of valuable lessons because it was a high stakes game in Kirby, right? The appointments were hard to come by, right? And we had a phone room that was set up appointments too, but the people didn't really understand the full story when we were showing up. They knew they wanted free cleaning. They, at the very last minute, found out they're going to be looking at a machine and we're going to be showing them some features. But then I'd show up in a shirt and tie with this big box filled with this Kirby vacuum, and I'd unpack it and we do a show, like a full sales presentation. That could be a 2-hour thing. Wow. And at any point, if they decided that you were boring, they didn't like you, they had no interest in the product, any of those things, and they tell you to pack up and leave and they mean it, then you would have to sit outside their house sometimes for 2 or 3 hours and wait, because like when I first started, I didn't have my own car, right? And the way they would do it is they'd have one guy in a van who was called the crew chief, and he'd drive around and he'd be the ones dropping everyone and picking them up, and he'd be closing the deals too for all the new people if you didn't know how to close your deals yet. So if you get kicked out, you're waiting out there because he may be dropping off other people's appointments, or he may be closing a deal for someone that didn't screw up. And obviously picking you up is a lower priority than us closing this deal and getting paid because we're all on commission. So I learned it was a high stakes game where they could push the "you're dead to me" button and you're done, like you're over. So I got really good. Like, and when you're asking about natural ability, so yes, like communication was always a strong point for me. I learned to read at an early age. They used to call me the human dictionary, even in elementary school, like in kindergarten. One of my teachers like coined that phrase. Like my mom read with me when I was little. My mom spent a lot of time with me when I was little and taught me a lot of things. So that did help. and my dad was a salesman too. My dad sold cars, real estate, life insurance. He passed when I was 12, but he had very good communication skills. So yes, like I can thank my parents like for those genetics, but it's also like something that was also instilled at me in a young age. Like my dad brought me from construction site to construction site, selling sodas. Like he'd go buy a bunch of generic sodas at the store. When I was like maybe 5, 6 years old, we'd go around when they were building all the houses, back in the day in Phoenix, and I'd sell all the sodas and he'd let me keep all the money. And this was like a thing that we did together, right? And it taught me like a lot of lessons. Like my dad was always entrepreneurial minded, but he tried like a lot of things that didn't work. And then he'd find something that worked, and then we make some money. And this was all like when I was a baby and before I was born. But like he always had these ideas that were like the next big thing. And he finally did eventually find some things that worked. Like he did like some multifamily stuff, made some great money. He ended up getting sick and he was like overextended and he ended up losing everything. So like basically from my dad being sick and knowing he was terminally ill, like from like a young age, he really was very intentional with me in imparting all the things that he thought would be most important for me, and really trying to mold me into the best version of me. So like it was another one of those things where it's like, yes, it's a curse, right? Nobody wants to lose their parent at an early age, but in a way it can be looked at as a perspective shift because all of our time's limited. His just happened to be more limited than we would have liked, but it cost him to live like with a real intent. And like that's one thing I can give to my dad. Like the things he imparted in me have definitely stuck with me. And even I'm very grateful for that because there are some really important lessons like work hard, outwork everybody, find a thing that you really enjoy and that you're good at and become the best at it. And then find the best people to learn from. That was another thing he taught me. You know what I mean? Anything that I was involved in, like when I was in martial arts, we went and found like the best person that was like a former Navy SEAL that like really like, you know what I mean? He always trying to connect with the top people and things he did. And that's what helped me out too. Like connecting with Sean Terry in the beginning. I had basically like a 2-year paid mentorship where I made more money than I ever made selling Kirby's, you know what I mean? And learning along the way and having all the leads, like that was a huge blessing that helped jumpstart me. Like, I feel like in those 2 years, I probably got more experience than if I twice the amount of time without all the help and assistance. So
yeah, dude, so many good points. I mean, we could go deep into a lot of that stuff, but I mean, a couple of takeaways for people who are listening. Number one, if you're at a sales job right now, realize that you're basically getting paid to learn. And so those skill sets, whether it be from your dad, whether it be from the vacuum sales with Sean Terry, are just priceless. I see a lot of people, and this is what I tell everyone, like people who get into business and real estate investing, what separates good real estate investors from great real estate investors is truly the ability to communicate with people, right? Like talk to people. Where do you think people go wrong? Why do so many people struggle so much with that component? Because I see a lot of people out there who are struggling right now in this industry, to be frank.
For me, the advice I would give to people is I would find someone whose sales style resonates with you, because there's lots of different effective ways to communicate and sell, and you need something that you can buy into and feel comfortable with. For me, a lot of my style, can't lie, is from the guy I learned how to sell Kirby's from. And the reason why is his style was from other people that sold Kirby's. These are things that were tested over decades and years of general principles. So there's certain general principles on how people think and make decisions and act that are just universally true. Now, there's different approaches to tap into those things, right? Some people are naturally more aggressive and they like a more direct approach, right? being too aggressive is always going to give you better results than being too timid. But I feel the very best, the upper echelons of salesmen, they know how to be aggressive without being actually aggressive or causing any friction or causing any bad feelings. That's when you're on the next level, is when you're completely controlling everything and the seller's loving it, or the buyer, whoever your counterpart is loving it. And I prefer personally the consultative approach, because I feel that the more information you can get from your prospects, the easier it is for you to give them the solution that they want. That's the important thing. And it's, the solution that they want may be different than what you're anticipating. And that's why when you can, the best sellers, I feel, ask the best questions and get the prospects to think. Because if you can get the prospect to convince themselves and have everything seem natural, that's the key to having just like a flawless victory, basically, where you can set it up and have it be low friction. I love low friction up front, negotiating with a third party in the middle, and then closing with action at the end. So I would say find a blueprint and if you're out on your own, I would look into finding someone. I would copy something that's already tested first before you go off and try to reinvent the wheel. Because you'll find, even if you look at multiple people's trainings, if they're good trainings, there's going to be more things that are similar than different. So I would find a blueprint, get good at that first, and add your own flavors and spices to it later. But I think that there's so much good information out there that there's really no reason to try to start things from scratch. I would just jump into the basics of sales,
100%. Yeah, so good, man. So yeah, I think finding a proven process is key. And then I love what you said, adding your own flavor to it, right? Adding your own touch to it, because I'm not you, you're not me. And every seller is different, right? So you've got to be able to establish that likability, that trust factor. And so I think where a lot of people may go wrong is they kind of just stick to the process so much so, and they don't adapt to each individual, and they're trying to be too professional or something like that, right? Maybe versus just being them. Like if you and me are just having a conversation, hanging out, having a beer, let's say, like I'm going to be able to talk to you and say really whatever and have a comfortable conversation, maybe versus being like this super to the point, uptight, like don't go off the script at all. And so I love your consultative approach, and I think it resonates with a lot of people. So let's dive into innovations, man. That's why we're here. So I have a sales team. I've been doing this business for 5 years and full-time for 4. And over the past, few years, we've wholesaled hundreds of properties. But as of lately, we felt like we've had to pivot and change because that gap in the wholesale market kind of tightened because of the cash buyers and all that good stuff. And so we've really started doing novations. And I will say, novations have definitely added another layer of process to our business, but we've had some of the biggest deals from novations that is super, super exciting, right? So nice. Let's talk about kind of the conversation, right? Like obviously if people want to learn more, they can go deeper with you, but a belief that a lot of our team has, I feel like, when it comes to the closes, why would somebody go with you on an ovation when they could just list the property themselves? I'm sure you hear this all the time, right? So I want you to just crush this belief in why somebody would do this.
I love it. And this is the most common thing. Like when people first hear about novation, maybe they watch some YouTube videos, maybe they've seen some reels or whatever, right? And then they go to try to pitch it. This is where people go wrong. They pitch a process, okay? They pitch to the seller a process. We're going to do this, this, and this. We're going to list it on the MLS. We're going to look for a buyer. They're pitching the features instead of pitching the benefit. I pitch a solution. So I'll give you just like a brief overview on my philosophy and like how I pitch the novations, and we can maybe unpack some of it and go into some more detail on whatever seems interesting. So the first 90% of the call is exactly a wholesale call. I'm approaching this as the low man on the totem pole that talks to the seller. I'm just an information gatherer. I'm here to just get the property details. I ask some curious questions about their situation, try to get them to unpack it, but it's very low friction, it's very consultative and almost customer service like. I don't give them any impression I have any negotiating power, that I'm a high man in there. I'm just like a low-level person. They can tell me anything. It's no big deal.
Yep.
So the phase one we call the discovery phase. So that's where we gather all the information, very little friction, no pushback. Even if the price is not where we want it to be, we don't really dive into that and touch on that. Phase two is the anchor phase. So the anchor phase is when we present low comps. We start talking about repair costs. We start talking about situational hazards, potential things with their situation that may not make it a match in a traditional sense. We start closing other doors. We might present the option of, hey, why would it, have you thought about renting it out? Giving them some alternate solutions that we know probably aren't going to be a match, just so that we're eliminating options and kind of closing these doors. Then
call number two, just so I'm up to speed with you, you got the discovery and then you've got the offer call, quote unquote, but with the low comps kind of going for the no, other alternatives, right? To kind of keep leading it down the path.
Sometimes both those phases will happen in one call, and sometimes it will take place in two calls.
Gotcha.
Just depending on, if you have a lead manager in place, sometimes they can do the discovery call and your closers doing the second half. Or sometimes if it's a really hot lead, like a PPC lead, and, there's this urgency, you can condense those both to one call, right? Where you can bring up some comps and everything like that. So everything's getting treated as a cash deal. There's no talk of novation, third-party sale, anything. This gives us a couple advantages where we can knock out other wholesalers and explain what a wholesale offer is with, low earnest money, long inspection. They may back out at the last minute, maybe a third-party story of someone we've worked with where they moved all their stuff out and we're left holding the bag. And we just kind of explain to them, if they are dealing with other offers, here's some things to kind of look for to know if it's a legit cash offer or not, right? So we're eliminating a lot of the competition and destroying their credibility so that we don't have to compete with them on just price alone, right? Because we don't want to compete with just numbers. We want to try to, put everything to our advantage. It's the truth. We've all been with deals where some bozo offers them way too much money and then they can't complete the deal. And then the seller's in a bad situation. So we go through that. And then the third phase is the delivery phase. This is where the magic happens. And this is important for a few different reasons. Okay. I've tried this a lot of different ways because when I was first taught novation, the way that I'm pitching it is not the way I was taught. The way I was taught, and this is how a lot of people still do it, is you go through, you pitch your cash offer. If they say no to that, then you circle back around and say, hey, we actually have this other program. A lot of times people will offer them more money there and then just kind of explain what the process is and see if they want to do it. Okay. I do this differently. Every single deal, whether I'm going to wholesale it or whether I'm going to pitch it on, I know I'm going to sell it on the market. I lock them all up the same way, and every person, unless they have a short timeline or there's no access, always gets my novation paperwork and has the expectation set that it's going to be a third-party sale. So basically what I do is I call them back for my third call. They're waiting for a decision from the, from the underwriting team or the powers that be, the decision makers. I let them know, hey, Mr. Seller, I did submit this for a cash offer. This would be with us being the final buyer. This is something where we could put in significant earnest money. We can close quick. As soon as 10 days, I'll be honest with you though, seller, this probably isn't going to be the best option for you. Okay, I was able to get an offer approved, but the reality is what's going on with the market. The offer is going to have to be considerably lower than where you're hoping to be in order for us to make it work. We'd have to be at 143,000, right? And let's say the seller wants 200. Right. So I hit him with the low anchor. I wait maybe a second or two. And I say, however, so basically I wait just long enough for them to feel it, but not long enough for them to hang up or start cussing me out.
Right.
So say, however.
Do you let them know this is what the property qualifies for a cash offer program? Is that how you propose it? Like, this is what the underwriters approved for the cash program?
Correct.
Okay.
And I make sure the cash offer is incredibly low. Like, the cash offer needs to be like, they never say yes to my cash offer. If they say yes to your cash offer, you didn't go low enough.
Yep.
So, but I do it tentatively, and then I come back and then I replace it. I say, however, actually have some great news. There's another program, I was telling you earlier, we are a creative real estate investment company. I didn't really go in the details of this because not very many properties are a fit for this. I was able to get you a full approval for the concierge service. Let me explain what that is, okay? Concierge service, you get all the benefits of a cash offer where we pay all the closing costs, you get a net amount promised to you, you don't have to pay for any fees, commissions, it's a hands-off white glove experience where we can basically deliver the results on a silver platter. So from doing so many deals in Tennessee, whatever state they're in, we have a robust network of realtors, other investors, and even retail buyers that we have access to. We have all the systems and processes in place to move properties quickly. Now, we have to be extremely selective on which ones we take on because we only get paid when the deal goes through. So we actually earn our fee from the buyer. So this doesn't cost you one penny or red cent. And, we are very careful, again, on which ones we take on because it is very labor and resource intense for us. So we have to be certain that we can get these deals done. Now, I have everything drawn up in black and white. I'm about to send it over to you right now. That way we can review everything together. If you have any questions, feel free to just, stop me at any time. So they don't hear the price. They don't hear MLS. I'm not confusing them with these extra things. I'm hitting all the hot points, giving them just enough information for it to make sense, but not raise a million questions. And this is where people go in wrong, is because their natural inclination is to want to open up the discussion to explain everything.
You're right.
This is the thing, though. This is not what the seller needs right now. What the seller wants and what the seller needs is certainty and a solution. And if you get really good at conveying that energy and making them feel comfortable, that's what's going to get the conversion there. Because if you start explaining everything, some of those people down the line will eventually agree to it. But it's going to be after sleeping on it, praying on it, mulling it over, talking to their neighbor, talking to the this and that and that. And the momentum is going to go down, 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 down the whole time. Now, when we're reading through the paperwork, that's where they see the price. I don't skip a beat when I go through the price. I go right over it, keep moving on the contract. If they hate the price, they'll stop me, right? But I do make them stop me. I make them have to stop me rather than asking them, is this okay or not?
I got to say something here. Did you just hear this, guys? For those who are listening to this live, that is so good. I've never heard of anybody say it like that, because you didn't say, hey, it qualifies for this program that no other property qualifies for, and this is the number. You set the low offer price, but you sent them, it sounds like you sent them, really just kind of assumed you sent them this offer with this concierge service program with the cash, with not the cash, but the offer price. And you just read it off to them. You didn't really say, hey, does this work for you, right? You just read it off to them. You keep going through as if you already got the yes. That is good.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
That.
This is where I learned this from in Kirby, right? Because in Kirby, what we used to do, I go through my whole thing. I'd pitch my contest at the end. I'd build it up really big because they always had different contests that we'd win, right? They were normally vacations. They're badass vacations, like a week in Hawaii. We went to Cancun. They're actually cool places. And we had like a little flyer and stuff, right? That was the big thing. A lot of people bought because of the contest. And the contest was always the reason for the urgency. So what I would do is, like, at the very end, when I'm setting up my machine, I got, like, we used to pull these little dirt pads that, like, basically we'd vacuum their stuff, and the machine had this little filter just for the sale that would collect all the dirt. So at the very end, I'm sitting in their living room. There's dirt spread out everywhere on there. I'm pitching my thing. And when I give them the final price, I'd hand over I had a clipboard with the credit app on it, right? Because people could buy these on payments. And that's how most people bought it. It's $2,800. They weren't expecting anything, but I could get it down to 99 bucks a month, right? Which pretty much anyone, if they really wanted to, could afford it, right? If they have an income. So I would give them I'd hand them the credit app on the clipboard. I say, here you go, this is for you. Then I take the pen and then I'd roll it down the clipboard, and purposely it'd roll off the clipboard, it'd fall on their lap or it'd fall on the floor, and they'd reach down to pick it up, and then I'd already been stepped back. So the pen's in their hand, right? I say, okay, all you need to do is just this easy stuff on the top, name, address, phone number. When you get past that, if you have any questions, just let me know. And then I'd like turn on the vacuum and I'd start vacuuming, right? And then they'd be like, they'd look at each other, and I swear, half the time they'd like give each other like a funny look, and then they get down and they just start filling it out. You know what I mean? Or they'd be like, what's this for? Be like, oh yeah, that's just to get the Kirby in the house, just name, address, phone number, all that stuff. They're like, is this a credit app? Yeah, it's for payments. What, do you have a credit card that you get points on? Would that be better? You know what I mean? It was just everything was like, of course, like you're buying it. Like, yo, look at all this dirt.
Like, here's the pen, fill out the application, let's go. Right?
Yeah. So it's the same thing with that. Like, this is the thing that helps convert too. It's my belief that this is the best option for them. And like, my confidence is, yes, of course they're going to say yes. They actually qualified for the concierge service. Yeah. Nobody says no to that. Like, what? You know what I mean? Right. So that belief subconsciously, and two, this is another little Jedi mind trick, is because in the beginning, I'm so low friction and non-assertive, right? So the contrast of that, once they're qualified for the concierge, where I really take the reins and take control, it makes it that much more potent because they haven't seen that side of me. Yeah. So it's shifting gears too. So like my goal, the psychological thing behind it is the cash offer is big tension with the letdown. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the perfect solution, the paperwork, run through it, explain everything. And in the paperwork, I literally read through the whole contract. Read through the whole thing. You guys can check on my training, check on my live calls. I do it the same way every time. Wow. Like, I learned this in Kirby. You need a process that's repeatable, that you can just plug anybody into, that's able to follow directions, that requires very little creativity and requires very little decision-making. The more decision-making and variables there are in your process, the more inconsistent results you will get. Because when I first started selling Kirby's, I did all this extra stuff. And I still sold a bunch of Kirby's, but my boss told me, he goes, look, do you want to sell a bunch of Kirby's or do you want to get rich? He goes, you're going to sell a bunch of Kirby's. You're just good at talking to people. You're not going to get rich selling Kirby's by yourself. You're going to need an office. To get an office, you're not going to be able to teach everybody to do all this random crap that you do all the time. You're going to need something that's repeatable. And that's when like I realized like the value of that. So I do it the same way every time because it's easy to teach and easy to learn. And I get more consistent results because I've like experimented with so many different ways. And I've just kept the stuff that tests the best. You know what I mean? It's like running like ad splits, right? If I test something new, if it performs better, I'll keep it. But like the way I do it now, like I've had that locked in for a good year plus. And it's been very consistent. So yeah, I run them through the paperwork and explain everything, because that's also very important on this. You'll get people to sign. If you don't read through the paperwork, you'll get cancellations. You'll have people do weird stuff. They'll go behind your back. Like basically all the third-party stories I tell and all the paperwork stuff that I do was based off of like other deals that went sour for me not doing those things. So I make sure I set all the expectations properly so the sellers don't get mad when I make money. The sellers don't try to sell to someone else. They don't think that one thing's going on and that we do something else and then they get mad. I've learned how to present it to them to make everything favorable, make them agree to it, and have them just be along for the ride, basically. Like they're just looking for the end result. I don't get them too much involved with the nuts and bolts of everything because that's just going to cause them anxiety. It's things to worry about that they don't have control over. And at the end of the day, they don't care.
Gotcha. Dude, well, you explained that like way better than I was even expecting. And anybody who had a belief about why somebody would do that, hopefully it's crushed. So I think you did that. So thank you for going through that process. Now, I have a couple questions. In regards to the price, obviously you've anchored with the low cash. You've come in with this concierge service, and you just have them stay put. You already have everything drafted up. You send it to their email. At that point, I assume both decision makers, if there are more than one, are right there ready to go over this with you. How does your price vary from your cash to your novation offer? And does what they wanted for their price have anything to do with the novation price that you put on that agreement that you pretty much assume that they're going to accept?
So in the anchor phase, I'm hitting them with the low comps, but I'm also hitting them with a tentative low range. So in the anchor phase, I am throwing out numbers to test their temperature, and also to try to move the frame of reference down from, instead of them thinking their asking price is the frame of reference and me negotiating them down, I set the low comps as the frame of reference and then them negotiating up. So anything they negotiate up from that is a relative win compared to where we were.
And low comps is not your offer. That's another cash buyer's offer, right? That's a low comp.
And it's always a range. It's never a hard number. It's always a range, and I always make sure the top number of the range is still well below what my max allowable as is, and then the bottom number of the range, there's at least a good $40,000-$50,000 worth of spread in there. So the range I'm not boxing myself in anywhere. And you know what I mean? Like, let's say we could sell it. Well, basically, like, the bigger the range and then the lower that it is, it makes it more of a win for them. Now, you can't get greedy, and if it's a $300,000 house, say, yeah, I think we'll give you 75 to 110, whatever the case is, right? Like, there is a limit where you lose credibility if you go too low with the range, but I set it up purposely very tentatively. And the way I do it is I say, hey, look, Mr. Seller, I'm by no means a decision maker. I don't want to make any bones about that. We've got a whole other team that has a systematized process on how they evaluate these properties. However, I know that they do look at recent similar sold properties. And I did notice, there was one that actually it's also a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Looks like it's in the same subdivision. It was built within 2 years. I saw, oh, wow. Yeah, this one just sold on the market. It was listed for 94 days. And this one sold for like $120,000. And I'll just kind of throw it out there for a second. And then, like, there's a long pause. I might say, oh, I'm not saying that that's what we would pay, but just wanted to give you like some facts of the neighborhood. And just keep in mind, even though they sold it for 120, likely they only walked away with about 90% of that after they paid, the realtors and the closing costs. Like, I'm just curious. I know you were trying to avoid like the on-market thing. Like, if hypothetically, like if we were able to get in the range of maybe like, 70 to, 100, 110,000, like, do you think that might be something you could live with? And they may say, oh, no, I would never do that. Like, no, you're crazy. Or they might say, well, maybe, if you get to the top of that range, or maybe they'll say, no, but I'll take, I need at least 140 because I got to pay off my mortgage. I need $5 more grand. Like, basically, like, the really low one will at least elicit a reaction and a response from them. And it does help lower the needle. So that's like, I am checking their temperatures. I'm not shooting offers just in the dark, like at the end. Like, basically in the negotiation phase is where I find out if they're pliable and how ready they are. You know what I mean? And if they're just stuck on retail, or there's like some impending events where they're not really pressed to make a decision right now, I might circle back and keep them in the negotiation bucket for a while. Because I know when I shoot my shot with an offer, my absolute best opportunity with that is the first time doing that. You know what I mean? Because I only get to shoot that bullet once. And then after that, we're circling back and there's a lot less momentum the second time around. So yeah, like people I shoot offers to, it's more than a 50% conversion rate, but not everybody makes it that far. You know what I mean?
That's important.
So there's a lot of deals, they never make it to the offer phase because we get stuck in the negotiation or like they're just stuck on that price, you know what I mean? And then we got to just circle back to them.
Yeah, so at the point you're actually sending that paperwork and you've decided what that number is going to be on this program, they're pretty committed and ready to move forward and sell the house. And so when you made that 140, what can somebody expect? I mean, obviously their balance owed, how much their expectations is, et cetera, is probably what goes into what you put on for the novation offer, I would imagine.
Sure. Because every deal, of course, you know, it's our duty to our company, to our family, to be as profitable as possible. Because opportunities don't come across your desk every day. Anyone that's in this business knows it's an expensive business to be in. You know what I mean? Yes, you see these big checks and everything, but there's a lot of money and time and effort that goes into all this. And yeah, definitely. So like basically what I want to do is I want to figure out first what I can sell it for. That's the most important number I need to find out. Then you find out your max allowable number, right? Which you'll get from your sales price. Like basically you want to be able to pay everybody off and make at least 30 grand. That's what I recommend, is your max allowable should contain a 30 grand net profit. I wouldn't recommend doing these deals expecting less than that, because it can turn into a lot of work for a little bit of money if you do it that way, because unexpected things can happen. Then I'm looking for all my tools to spin the narrative to get the biggest discount I can. So my tools are going to be low comps. They're going to be the seller situation, and there's going to be repairs. So I use those three things, and I'm shooting them out in different ways when I'm talking to the seller, and I'm testing them to see what's moving the needle. Like, do they have a problem that needs to be solved? Do they just need to be brought back to reality on, you know, what it's going to take to get a quick sale with the house? Because if they want full retail, you know what I mean? It may not be a fit. And if they don't have any problems for me to solve, they're just looking for quick and easy, but they don't really need it. They just kind of want it. Just remember, like, not every person, of course, is going to be a fit for what we're doing. So basically what I do is my process is a net that's going to catch the most likely people that are going to be a fit for this. And then the other people, they just kind of swim away. And that's a good thing, because I don't want to spend a significant amount of time with someone that has a problem that I'm not going to be able to solve, or that's not going to be a profitable problem for me to sell. They're better off going somewhere else. I'm better off spending my time with someone that can use my help better.
I like that. And you're not forcing deals. You're literally doing business with the people who fit into the criteria that it takes to be able to execute this. So you've worked for Sean Terry, obviously. He did a lot of wholesaling. Was he doing many novations when you were working for him?
So when I worked for him, no, we didn't do any novations.
Okay.
From what I see, it seems like he since has. So I've seen him like do some posts on it. But no, yeah, this was pre novations in the Sean Terry days.
Okay. So do you do any wholesaling at all, or is pretty much everything you do novation?
Yeah, about a quarter of the deals I do get sold off market before they make their way there.
Okay.
So if I can do it quick and easy, off market and fast and less work, and it's close to the same amount of money, I'll do it that way.
Okay.
But they're still getting signed as a novation, and they still understand that there's a third-party sale involved, because it'll just make the back end process way easier. Like, we used to do kind of the ambiguous thing of like, yeah, my partners, and you know, you run into weird situations when you do that. And I don't think anybody really feels like fully great about doing that, because if it's not lying, it's like the cousin of like lying. Like it's in the same family as lying, even if it may not directly be lying. It's pretty close. So they understand. And then that way too, when I call them for access and stuff, they're excited about it. And the reason why is because when I call for access and they understand what's going on, they see it as a step closer to getting what they want. But if you position yourself as a cash buyer, every time you need access, they think of it as a step away from it. Because it's like, well, dang, are you buying it or not? Like, it seems like when you keep needing to access it, it makes it seem like you're not certain if it's a good deal or not. Yeah. So that incongruency makes them nervous and makes them anxious.
Yeah. And I have a question, because the transparency from me watching your Instagram has just been refreshing, because you're not hiding anything. Like everything is laid out there on the table. And I think the reason I asked about the belief is because as I communicate this to my sales team, they've been hanging on so much, because they think by having that we're not the ones going to be able to being the ones to buy, all that's going to potentially blow the deal, when it's just not the case. Like, the full transparency is so key with all of the next steps. Are you the main point of contact with that seller the entire process once you
Yeah,
have
so
the agreement?
with the seller, when I lock them up under contract, I let them know, look, I'm going to be your concierge. There may be other team members that are going to be working with me on this, but it's going to be mostly for things like scheduling, paperwork, anything having to do with money, the deal itself, any concerns you have. I want all that communication to filter through me, so you just have one point of contact. You know what I mean? And there's no confusion about anything. And then you've got one main person you're working with throughout the process. So yeah, like, people will reach out for scheduling and showings and stuff like that. But yes, I would, like, the buck stops with me. Like, when it comes to the seller, I take full accountability for their to make sure they have a good experience. And that's why people choose to work with me too. Like, this is the thing. This is what will get people to work with you, is the confidence that you can deliver what it is that they want. That's why people will say yes to it, even if they don't fully understand. They're like, look, I like Rich and I want to work with Rich. Yeah. He seems like he's very straightforward. He doesn't give me a hard time about things. He's confident that they can get this done. They seem very professional on the phone. You know what I mean? And that's what I always try to build with them, is not the rapport of like things in common. Like, yes, of course, I want them to feel comfortable around me. I want them to have that emotional connection. But more importantly is I want to position myself and the company that I'm with as professionals that can produce results. And that's why I never chase them. Like, when I'm finding out about the property, I'm always qualifying them, and I'm always making sure that I don't chase them, beg them, try to convince them. In a power dynamic, whenever there's one person trying to convince the other, the decision maker is always the person in charge. So that's why I always make them wait for our decision, never beg them or try to give them that power dynamic, because in reality, like, the things that they want unchecked don't coincide with reality. They want more than their house is worth. They want it to be easier than is possible. Like, you know what I mean? Bringing them back to reality is a big part of it. So, yeah, I just spit out a bunch of stuff there. I even forgot what the original question is.
No, this has been amazing. I think the flip side of this is, okay, so, I mean, you've pretty much given us a masterclass on really the process, how to pitch this, things to do, maybe things not to do. And what about on the backside? So you're their main point of contact. You've got them feeling comfortable. How about pitching an agent? Like, do you utilize agents? If you do, and then where do they fit in? Do they have any communication with the seller?
This is a good question. So when I first started off, so like I was saying, I learned Novations when I was working with Corey Geary. We were using flat fee brokers starting out. And I used flat fee brokers for a while. And I don't recommend that anymore for a few reasons. It creates many points of friction with the buyer, where most flat fee brokers, when they call the listing, they got to call in to the brokerage. It'll either be a recording or possibly a VA, a virtual assistant that's overseas that answers the phone. And then they got to get your number, then they call you. If you're a licensed realtor, it's kind of a gray area. If you're not a licensed realtor, still kind of a gray area. You're talking to all the buyers. If you don't know the legalities and the formal paperwork in those areas, there's so many points of friction I can't find any reason, unless you only have 1 or 2 novation deals and they're like a cash deal anyways, then maybe like a flat fee broker's fine. Because the people you're dealing with are going to be people that you're used to dealing with, other investors that are paying cash as is. If you're dealing with retail buyers, it's almost always better to get a local agent, because then they can interface with the other agents. And like what you don't need is having your deal structure being a variable on how the deal gets done. Like when you're dealing with a local agent, it pretty much eliminates the whole novation thing as being a factor in it. Like they don't even know that it's a novation. They just know that there's someone selling their house. They're dealing with an agent that they may already know. You can leverage that agent's network. You know what I mean? The agent can help you with resources too. If there's work that needs to be done, things like that, you know, to pass inspection. The agent also understands that market. And in my training, I do show how you can locate and interview and motivate the best agents in any market across the country, because I'm fully nationwide. So I have like a systematized process on how I find them. And that was another thing that took me a long time to figure out, because I did everything the wrong way at first, and none of the agents would give me the time of day. And I kind of figured out a process with that too. But yes, I always want to work with the best agents, because the best agents will sell my property fast. They'll know what to do, know what to say, and then I can scale out. Because when you're selling these properties quickly, when your intention's always to get an offer in 30 days or less, having a great agent is going to make your life so much easier. And when you're dealing with a crappy agent, it sucks. It's 1,000 times more work. So you can scale these out, and then the agents are just reporting back to you. But the good agents, they're going to do most of the work of selling the house, and they're just going to come to you when there's a fork in the road where like an executive decision needs to be made. Like if you're holding your agent's hand and telling them how to sell the house, you're working with the wrong person. You want someone that's an expert in the area that has a proven track record. So basically, I look for people that have, here's the secret sauce. I look for people that have sold recently right in the area where my house is.
I love it.
I interview them and have them prove themselves to me before I start spilling the beans and explaining myself to them. Then I present myself as a person of high value that's moving into a new market, looking for an agent to have a lasting relationship with, and explain to them, hey, look, I'm willing to sell it at a reasonable price to move it quick. This is going to be a slam dunk deal for you. And I can start feeding these to you on a silver platter if things go well. So, hey, let's make sure we all put our best foot forward and let's get this deal done. You know what I mean? So yeah, and then you'll have go-to agents where you can in each market. So when you get other deals there, you can use, you know, the same people if you had a good experience with them. But definitely recommend a local agent. That will save you so many problems and give you a lot more time to focus on getting more deals and not focus on selling these. You know what I mean? Like the agents, you want that to be on autopilot. I would put all your eggs in the basket of getting the deals coming in, because that's the hardest thing to do. Finding the agents is easy. There's a lot of agents out there.
Yeah.
But trying to sell them yourself is going to be a freaking nightmare, even if you're really, really good. If once you get beyond like 3 or 4 of these and they're priced aggressively and you're getting 10, 15, 20 calls a day on each one, there's only so many calls you can take at once. You know what I mean? And yeah, you'll have a lot of problems. Like I would definitely recommend hiring a local agent. And the power of attorney.
I was going to ask about that, because
yeah.
did the agents ever give you pushback on you being that in this relationship?
No, because you have the full legal right. Like there's really nothing for them to push back on, because the power of attorney is specifically, it's a real estate limited power of attorney for the authorization to sign listing docs, offers, addendums, and basically you sign everything except for the final closing docs. The seller still signs that and collects their own proceeds. Like we don't collect their proceeds.
Gotcha. So you say you're nationwide. Are there any states in the United States that you do not do business in, or just would say to avoid altogether?
Hawaii, their laws are different. To avoid, I mean, I've done deals in Illinois. You know, a lot of people say avoid Illinois. Innovations, I don't know what the legal rule is. You can do, 1 or 2 wholesale deals a year there. I don't know if novation falls under that or not. I'm not an attorney, so I don't want to like lead anybody wrong on that. But no, I mean, I can tell you this, attorney states, there's normally an extra layer in there. But here's the key thing. This is the most important thing, is the title company that you use.
Yeah.
Is the title company is the decision maker if you get paid or not. So even if you have the right answer and the title company disagrees with you, guess what? You're not getting paid.
Yep.
And you lose. So
have you ever had the title company send the proceeds to the seller before in one of these because they didn't know how to process it?
Oh, bro.
I've always wondered.
I've been through a lot of title companies, and almost everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. But yeah, I've had title companies try to cut me out of the deal. I've had title companies make me sign like all sorts of crazy disclosures with the seller and with the buyer. I've had a lot of things have gone wrong. But I have a title company now that's in all 50 states. That I've got 100 and I think 75 or 76 course members in my course, and almost all of them are using this title company, which is good because we have strength in numbers, right? And I've got direct contact with all the top people there. So if there ever is any issues with any deals, like my students reach out, we reach out to the title company and we solve it. Basically, the title company, here's a little secret, guys. The title company is always on someone's side. And if you don't know whose side they're on, it's not yours. So
right.
You want the title company, you want a great relationship with them. You want to treat them well because they're the ones that decide if you get paid or not. And anytime I've ever had a problem with a deal, it's almost always we're using the buyer's title company. And it was we got pushed in a corner. It was our only option. But yeah, the title company is the best resource. And if anybody wants to find out who I use, they can send me a DM on Instagram with their email address. And I see on here I accidentally did a typo on my name. It's Novation King, not Novation Kint. But just shows you, hey, look, you don't have to be that smart to do these deals. Even someone like me that can't even spell their own name can pull it off. But yeah, the title company is the key player. And that's basically what I focus all my energy on. Because if they tell me yes, I can get paid, I just do the thing that they tell me to do. And if they say no, I'll say, well, what do I have to do? And then they'll direct me. So there have been changes, major changes in the paperwork since we've been doing the deals. But it's a fluid thing. We roll with the punches, with anything. It's look, I need to figure out how we get paid on this. What do I need to do? They give me the instructions. I keep the seller on board, and then we just roll from there.
It sounds to me like the title company is pretty almost the most important thing when it comes to on the sales side. So is that a negotiation piece where you're pretty firm on hey, it's going to be this title company, otherwise we might not be able to do a deal? Or how flexible are you when you're negotiating those retail offers? Probably depends on the offer too, right?
It's a very here's the thing. In some places there's laws against the having the condition of the sale being on using a certain title company. I actually had a student text me this morning about a deal in Tennessee. They're having an issue with that on. Wow. So to be honest with you, for me, I haven't had any deals fall apart because of it. And there's only been a handful of times where maybe there's a property that had been sitting for a long time. We're running out of time. We only have one offer on the table, and we have to use the buyer's title company. Otherwise, they won't do it. Well, I guess at that point, if you're dead in the water anyways, and you have nothing to lose, you can try to go that route. But I always try to avoid that. And I'll talk to the realtor and explain to my listing agent beforehand how important it is for us to use the title company of our choice and figure out what the legal way is to push that in that direction. And I always price them aggressively too, so that I have multiple offers. Then I can make the decision. Yeah. You know what I mean? It gives us more power.
Yeah. How involved do you get if a buyer is asking for this, and this to be fixed up? Are you doing credits more than anything if you can? Are you doing renovations before closing ever in any case?
Normally, no. Me personally, no. I've got a low risk tolerance, and I'm not good with construction and stuff like that. I've never flipped a house. I've done deals where I've JV'd with people, and we just did one in Chula Vista where We spent a total of like $13,000. But that was, we did some floors that had to be replaced to pass inspection, a little drywall work and painting, and then we moved all the junk out of the house. So if there's a big enough risk reward like that one, we ended up like the net profit was like 65K.
Wow.
Right? So to spend 13 to make 65, yes, that's worth it. Now, that's an isolated incident, though. I'm not normally looking for them like, okay, what kind of work can I put into this to make it sell? Normally, like the max that I'll do is move their crap out of there, just because that has to happen anyways for the deal to go through. So why not pull that Band-Aid off in the beginning so it'll at least help us get a higher sale price?
Like a junk out.
A junk out, exactly.
Okay.
Junk out, maybe pay a cleaner $500 to go through and, you know, sweep it and all that stuff. But yeah, generally I try to do as little work as possible, and I will always offer credit if given the option, as opposed to doing the work. Because doing the work is just more variables. What if they do it wrong? Then I got to call all the people and find the right person. Then if they delay, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I try to keep everything as quick and easy as possible. Even if I'm not maximizing the profit on every single deal, I just make up for it with volume, because in my opinion, time kills all deals. So I'm always racing to the finish line, because that's also what I promised the seller.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I make sure I can negotiate hard on the front end so that I can still deliver the result in a timely manner. Because I know I'm going to have to sell it for a discount too to move it quick.
Is every closing, how long do these typically take from start to finish? I know
start to finish, I would say most of them fall in the 45 to maybe 60, 70 day mark.
So is the stage typically with the seller about 60 days then? And then if he closes sooner, that's great. Or does it just depend on each person's scenario?
Yeah. So, well, so if it's a cash deal, those ones move the fastest because we're not waiting on the lender, right? So the lender, you can look to add about 30 days to any transaction. So it depends on how fast you can find an agent and list it, and then how fast you can get an offer. So ideally, I want to market it off market right away when I'm looking for an agent. I want to secure an agent within the first like 3-4 days, right? And it definitely start that process in the first like 2-3 days. As soon as I get the power of attorney notarized, then I start calling for agents. I'll interview them for a couple days, find the one I like, get pictures, then list it. So like in an ideal world, I'll have it on the MLS within a week of it being under contract, and then have an offer within 2 weeks or less. And definitely within 3 weeks. Like you want an offer within the first 30 days. Like I would be extremely nervous going to day like 33 or 34 with no written activity. That would tell me I have it priced too high. It's always the price. Like if
that's probably never happened, right? Because nothing, I'm just kidding, right? Like that probably has happened before, right?
Success rate. Don't believe the hype, bro. Never lost one of these deals, bro. 100%. Never miss.
Yep.
No, but yeah, there's definitely been a lot of growing pains, and there's some markets too where it's unpredictable. And it was funny is like a lot of the deals though, honestly, that go through were ones I was hesitant where I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work, but then we just run with it, and then it ends up getting done. You know what I mean? So yeah, you want to have a filter where you don't want to just throw spaghetti at the wall and potentially put someone in a bad space, but the other side of that is you don't want to be so uptight and restrictive that you don't give a chance to let things happen too. You know what I mean? Where you don't give every opportunity like a proper chance. So you want to be getting at least like 80% of these to the finish line though. Yeah. Like you don't want to just throw spaghetti at the wall because there's too much work involved to just like randomly throw these out here. And you're throwing out a lot of liability too, where you could be potentially putting someone in a bad position. And of course, we don't want to do that. Like when we tell the seller, yes, even if we're not certain we're going to make like a ton of money, we want to be certain that we can get the deal done. Yeah. And normally I go for at least 30 grand. So if it ain't worth it, if I can't get them down that much where I can think that I'll make 30 grand or at least maybe even 20 grand, like they're probably just not a fit for me.
Oh, dude, this has been so good. And like, I could keep going, Rich, but I know we've passed an hour. If whoever's on here wants to ask a question, we have time for one question. And while you're thinking about your question, if you don't have one, that's fine too. we'll give people an opportunity to learn more. Obviously, dude, the amount of value that you brought is insane. I can't even imagine how much value is in your course. I'm excited to look into that myself. So I guess with that, any final thoughts that you would like to leave people with? And then obviously we'll let people know where they can find more about you and post in the links as well.
Man. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for having me on here. For the people watching, I would just say this. Real estate is an amazing opportunity. There's all these different lanes and different ways to make money at this. If you're wholesaling, I can't think of really a good reason not to add this to your tool belt. There's going to be dead leads in your CRM that you can monetize right away. There's going to be opportunities that you can take from here going out forever. While this loophole is open, right? And you can be making more on each deal. These houses that aren't necessarily a fit for a cash buyer, but they're willing to have a discount, you'll be able to monetize all those. But I would just say, look, have fun. Every level that you get to, you realize it's not really that big of a deal. So whether you're just starting out and struggling or, you're making great money, I would say just look, enjoy the ride. None of this is that serious to begin with, right? But you'd be surprised at what's possible out there. You know what I mean? I always wanted to live like the type of life I'm living now, but I just didn't know how to do it. So I would just say, believe in yourself, find people that have the things that you admire and figure out how they got there and just keep following the blueprint. If you're interested in novations, my course has tons of live calls. It's got scripts with step-by-step instructions. It's broken down into condensed video modules, so it's easy to digest. It's a paint by the numbers. It also goes into the explanation behind why we say what we say and kind of how to decode the sellers so that you can fully buy into the process. So I think that's important too. If you're sold yourself on the process, it makes it much easier for you to pitch it with conviction. And all it really is about getting past people's defenses to solve their problems. That's what it is. You're a doctor trying to give someone a shot that they don't want. You know what I mean? You got to figure out how to get them to where they need to be for what needs to happen. But yeah, novationking.com. Follow me on Instagram. I've got tons of free videos. I give away all the same stuff that's in the course. Honestly, you can find on my Instagram. The way I talk to the people on the phone there is the same way I teach you how to do it in my course. If you're good at putting the pieces of the puzzle together, there's people that get novation deals just from following me on Instagram. If you want the full sauce laid out from A to Z, my course also has a private community. We have a novation boot camp that we did that we've got one more week of. All the recorded calls are in there. It's 8 2-hour Zoom calls. So if you want quantity of information, the quantity's there. If you like to go down the rabbit hole, the course itself is very condensed where you can look at it in a few days and be armed and dangerous to get the deals done. But, yep.
Wow. Well, guys, go follow Rich, Novation King on Instagram. We'll drop the link for your course in this as well in the comments. But, dude, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Rich. This has been amazing.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, we'll definitely have to stay in touch to see how we can collaborate on some stuff, bro.
100%, dude. We'll absolutely do that. And, yeah, thank you guys for checking out another episode. Take care and go make some money and have some fun doing it. Talk to you guys later.
Let's go. All right.